Hello and welcome to the Little Minds Big Ideas podcast with the Early Years Network, the podcast where we talk all things early years from inside and outside the wonderful industry. And today I am joined with Paul Carlon, an illustrator who is currently working on different children's books for the industry that we are in. So we thought it would be great to have him on to chat all about his journey and sort of the impact that his industry is having on ours. So thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks very much. Thanks very much for having me.
To start us off, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and sort of how you came into illustrating, where you found your love for it?
Yeah, sure. So my love for illustrating started way back in school. Me and a friend used to love doing it just on the backs of your textbooks and things like that. So we both did GCSE art and realised it was more about screen printing and things like that. So we kind of lost it a little bit there. I then joined the military, so I've been a military helicopter pilot since I left university. But I've always wanted to pick it up. It's always been there in the background. It's always been a passion. Yeah. I've always been the person that did the course pictures and things like that when we had courses and things like that. So a few years ago, I started doing some illustrations, putting them on Instagram and things like that, and just to see how they went down, and went and did a couple of sort of one-day courses just to sort of find out what the industry was like. And it just kind of went from there, really. So
spiraled on.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Do you think that putting your stuff out there on Instagram was was it a bit nerve-wracking to do because you don't know how it's gonna?
Yeah, exactly.
Down.
Yeah, it's like anything creative, isn't it? You always have the support of your friends and family, but until you put it out there and then start to get sort of proper feedback, you kind of don't know where it's going to go, don't know how it's going to go down, and that sort of thing. But it's been really positive, and I think like anything with social media, as long as you kind of like take it with a pinch of salt, and then it seems to be okay. So
putting yourself out there is quite a daunting.
Yeah,
doesn't matter what kind of aspect that you're doing it in, because I guess it's illustrating a way that you express yourself as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, definitely. And so I try and keep it to the illustration rather than necessarily about me so much, so that it's all about the illustration and, because and sort of how that sort of comes about, and, how it makes me feel and where it comes from and all that sort of stuff. So, yeah.
Oh, amazing. And what kind of different opportunities have you had sort of with illustrating? How has that been so far?
So this has been the biggest one until I'd started going looking for things. It was, very much a hobby, something that I really wanted to do and never thought, could it be a thing that you could actually go and do? I could do, after as a second job, or after this one, or what have you. So there's a brilliant place, House of Illustration in London, which is where I did that sort of first one-day illustrating intensive, just find out exactly what the industry is like. Met some really, really great people. Realised it was really hard, but also realised there was loads of different types of illustrating that you could go and do. It wasn't just sort of books, but it was very much like the sort of the children's picture book that I wanted to go into.
Yeah.
So that was like really interesting, because then I could start to explore a little bit more about what was out there and start to get in contact with more people. And then did a couple of online courses to then start to get an idea of, right, okay, it's a great idea. I'm sure everybody has these sorts of dreams. How realistic is it? How does my stuff compare to everybody else's out there? Is there a niche? Do I have a story? And, the sort of the way I illustrate comes from sort of memories and emotions and things like that. So very much with regards to the early years, like a lot of my my sort of inspiration comes from what I feel, what I remember from being that sort of age. And then I started looking for courses, did some courses, did a really amazing one with Claire Alexander, who's a brilliant illustrator. She illustrated a book called The Snow Bear, and she's got a couple of sort of series of books that she's brought out recently, which concentrate on sort of, the first one was it's a sort of a little bit of something, a little bit of courage, a little bit different. They're really amazing books, just to start to develop some of those ideas in earlier sort of picture books.
Amazing. I guess sort of looking from the outside in, you wouldn't know how difficult it is to be sort of in the illustrating and like being an author in that industry. I guess it's something that I wouldn't, because I've never sort of looked at to write a book. I wouldn't even know where to where to start with.
Yeah, exactly. No, you're absolutely right. And I think I was sort of super aware that it could feel easier than it sort of really is. I really wanted to make sure that I'm a bit of a planner. So I really needed to make sure that I wasn't just going to go on a whim, which I have a tendency to do as well sometimes, So I didn't want to just go on a whim and try it and, thinking that I had this idea that, maybe either was replicated somewhere else or, it wasn't going to do well or anything like that.
Yeah, I guess it's if someone said to me, being in early years, is there a book about, and I'd be like, yeah, you can read this. Whereas if you don't know about all the stories that there are, that are out there, because there's so many books, then like you say, you might have thought of something that you think is brand new, but actually it's exactly been done.
Yeah, exactly. And, and certainly, when I did Claire's course, she was saying, you will think you have a really unique idea, which is, and the chances are somebody else has done it anyway. Yeah. But then you put your sort of slant on it and, write or illustrate what it is that you've got that you're sort of, what. So again, whatever the emotions that makes you feel, try and get that onto the page. Yeah. And then actually you might have something that's different. So it's a case of, trying and making sure that you're not just got this one idea. Yeah. Try a number of different ones and just see how they go.
Yeah. Like, how are you going to tell the story? Because you can tell it differently to somebody else that's already done it. So recently you have worked with Julie and Adam on a book called Amazing Albert the Hero.
That's right.
And you've recently illustrated that book for them.
Yes.
So how did you get involved in that project? How did that come about?
So this is my first proper illustrating adventure. So it's getting published soon. And I just started so that my Instagram profile was then more, I am an illustrator. I started to sort of, trust myself a little bit more. And so my friends, started to realise that that's where I wanted to go. I was very open about the fact that, I was going to get something that was a little bit more stable in my normal working life so that I had the time to put to it, because it was going to take time.
These things can't just happen overnight, can they? You've got to put the work into, making it happen.
Yeah. And I really wanted to do it properly. So I wanted to make sure that I was making a decent amount of time for it. Yeah. So one of my friends put me in contact with Julie, who writes loads of really amazing poetry, and I was chatting to her about illustrating some of her poems, and she said, "Actually, we've just had an illustrator pull out of this project I'm working on with a guy Adam Ball. It's about his young lad, and she'd already written a poem about him, Albert, and it had gone down really, really well, and so they decided they were going to write a book about him." And they needed an illustrator. So they said, any chance? We've got quite a tight timeline. I think it was, I found out about it, I think, in November of that year, and they needed it done by the end of the year, or just into January. So I was like, I'll see what I can do. I'll draw a few pictures. If you like them, then we can sort of go from there. And and they liked it. And I mean, they were so easy to work with. They're such lovely people. And Julie's a phenomenally talented poet and writer, so it was really easy to get the images in my head from her words and then just sort of put them down on paper. So yeah.
Do you think that just sort of creating or reading the story and creating the pictures, do you feel like you've brought Albert to life in a way that they envisioned as well?
I hope so. Yeah. Adam is the one. So I'll go to Adam. So initially I spoke to Adam and said, tell me about Albert. What's he like? What's he, so drew pictures from there and then showed Adam as like, how are we doing? And then each step of the way, I'd send pictures out and go, this is how I've interpreted this element of the story. This is,
it's quite a big responsibility.
It is really nerve-wracking. Yeah,
characters to life
when it's based on a real, when it's based on his boy. So it's kind of like, but he was really, really happy with them, which is really reassuring, and it means that you feel like your natural way to go with it, your natural sort of progression with it. Yeah. You get sort of confidence in that, which then makes it easier then to continue it. So, that was great, and he seems to be really happy.
Did they give you a lot of creative control?
Yeah, actually, very much so. And I did keep saying to Julie, you must tell me. I'm not precious. You tell me if
it's not right.
Yeah, if the picture isn't right, or you want it to go in a different way, or the way I've sort of structured the pictures or anything like that. But she was very much like, no, that's fine. I'm happy with how it's going, and you just sort of do your thing. So it was a really, and not naive enough to think that it's always going to be like that.
I was going to say, are you sort of hoping that they all go like
Yeah, exactly. But what an introduction, such a great creative environment to work in. So it was really, really good for that. Yeah.
No, amazing. So sort of said a little bit that it's about Adam's son. What is the message behind this story then? How did that come about for Amazing Albert?
Yeah. So Albert's got cystic fibrosis, and they wrote this poem sort of about Albert, and then they developed it to be. So they had the idea of him being sort of a little superhero. But then Adam was like, he struggled to potty train with Albert. So he's like, right, well, could we use that as a theme for the book? And so the format of the book is he's playing and doesn't want to go to the toilet. Each time he's playing, doesn't want to be interrupted. He doesn't want to interrupt his sort of imagination.
Probably relate to that.
I can remember that when I was young. It's that sort of thing. And so what we then do is he then has an accident halfway through the book, and then it changes. So Adam, as the dad in the book, then sort of encourages him to not be scared of the potty and, think of it as a friend. And then we build the potty into the story in the second part, and he's actually a superhero with the potty sidekick. And we took it to the Eric charity in Bristol, who deal with children with bladder and bowel issues, and just so that I sort of had a bit of confidence in, how's it, is it looking about right? Does it exactly? Does it represent? Would people be able to read this and actually get something from it?
Yeah.
Have I got the pictures right to go with what we're trying to convey from the text?
Yeah.
They were great. They were really supportive as well. So that was quite reassuring. Yeah.
Potty training is a massive part of early years, and it's something that everybody in sort of our industry deals with, regardless of whether you're in the settings, a parent, whoever it is, and even going into primary schools. Toilet training is huge. So it's a responsibility of creating that's a realistic story that's going to help children as well.
No, I can totally get that.
And when you worked with the charity, what kind of things have they done with you guys? Did they support with knowledge or?
Yeah, they did. So I learned a bit about what they do and how they support, which is incredible. They've got an amazing team. But I also developed some stickers with them. So Albert's potty in the book has got a little face. So I sort of chatted to them about that, and we've developed some stickers so that kids can put the sticker on the front of their potty. And actually, you can have the potty as the character as well. And that was one of the things that they said would be a really, really good idea. So, that then making that connection between the book and the individual, the children themselves. And then when we do the launch in August, and we've got a storytell festival that we're doing in Bristol in October, we'll take the stickers along. Yeah. And I'll be also drawing, making cartoon pictures of the kids themselves, so they can have little amazing them, bookmarks and things like that. So it's trying to link the story to their reality. Definitely. And makes it a little bit more relatable for them.
Yeah. And kids love stickers.
Yeah, who doesn't love stickers? Not just kids.
Yeah, everybody, exactly. It's a win-win. Do you think sort of being involved in this story and working with them has opened your eyes to what the industry is like a little bit more?
Yeah, so the nice thing is it's bridging the gap between an educational book or educational book or educational illustration and story. And it's shown me certainly that you can link all those things together.
Yeah.
And it reads like you can just read it as a normal story. But also if you are trying to potty train, then it just helps. You can sort of put it in amongst all of your other books, and it's almost like a subliminal thing. They'll get used to hearing it, and that sort of thing. So it's a really nice. One of the things I when I went on one of these courses is, illustration. You can do this sort of illustration or this sort of illustration. You do books, you could do education, you could do adverts and all this sort of thing.
Yeah.
And it was nice to do this from the outset as my first major project, and see that you can blend them and get a really nice effect out of it. So that was really really good to see.
And what about sort of working with publishers and things? Because you guys are working with Troubadour publishers for this project. How has that been? Sort of, I guess when you maybe take that step to create your own book, you'll have to work with publishers to get to that stage. So
yeah, it's been really easy. So again, I hope that's the case throughout. They've been really good. And to be fair, Julie's done most of that. It was only really when it came to right now we need the pictures and doing the layouts and things like that they come directly to me. But yeah, they've been great. Really, really straightforward and easy. And
it's what you need.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And sort of with moving forward for yourself, what is it that you want to create?
So I would love to be an author illustrator eventually. So do both of those things. So while this has been going on, again, this course I did with Claire was to do that. It teaches you both elements of it. And my big nervousness was not having enough ideas. So actually doing that course and overcoming that sort of little anxiety about the fact that, no, there are ways that you can drum up ideas, and the ideas are there. It's just getting them out and onto a page, and then how you convert those ideas to a book. So that was great. So as I went through that, I was able to just make loads of notes about different story ideas.
Yeah.
And then I'll go back to this. I've got a few that run concurrently, and then as inspiration comes, you kind of dip in and out because sometimes it can be a little bit difficult, like anything creative.
Yeah.
So I've got a few ideas. I've got one that's fully written in draft form, which is ready. It's kind of ready to go. And then I've got another 2 that I'm working on. And then once I've got probably 2, 3, 4 in draft form, I'll then start to take them to publishers and see where we go with them. Yeah.
So with that first book that you've kind of finished, do you feel like you want to keep it a secret until it's like ready to go? Because I can imagine it's something you've sort of worked on and is precious about what it is. And
yeah, to a degree, it'd be nice. So there's been a select few people who've had to help me with it, I've read it to nephews and nieces, just to get the seal of approval. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So far so good. So that's really nice. And also to have someone like Julie there who is there professionally writing, because the first one is a rhyming book. So then to read some of her things and go, okay, that's okay. I'm in the ballpark, which is really good. And then I've got her to get advice off if I need, and for like proofreading and stuff like that when it gets to it.
Amazing.
So yeah.
I guess it's like you've got to get the length of the story just right as well, because that's something. Sometimes when you're reading a story in preschool, if it's too long, everybody's lost. You don't get the meaning behind it because someone's wandered off, someone's played. Like nobody's exhausted by the end of it. So that's something that I guess is something you've had to think about as well.
Yeah, definitely. That's been really good when reading it to my nephews and stuff like that, because you can see if they're engaged or if they drift off. So you get a bit of an idea as to whether you got it right or not. And actually working with Adam as well, he's been brilliant, because he's sort of, when I'm doing the pictures, I'll sort of say, how do I need to structure the picture so that Albert, is focused on the right thing. And he said, well, try and, draw it in, try not to have too many things spread around the page. So he's focusing on, what we're actually talking about in the text, and things like that were brilliant.
Yeah.
Because then it gives me, something that I'll be thinking of when I'm doing the other books as well, which is really good.
In terms of sort of books that you've read as inspiration and things, what have you kind of come across that has been quite I like how they've done that? Or
there's a few. So I love John Classen's books because they're funny as well, and I think that's really important, especially if when you're reading them, if you're engaged in it as well, then that's great. Oliver Jeffers as well. I love the emotion that are behind Oliver Jeffers' books. I totally key into. I can look at his pictures, and you almost sort of fall into that scene. You sort of know what it feels like. So that's those are my 2 like main major inspirations.
No, it's amazing. And we didn't cover this when we talked about Amazing Albert the Hero. When is that available?
So it's released on the 28th of August. It can be pre-ordered through the Troubadour website already. And I think it's on Amazon as well actually now. And then we've got the sort of the release party in Oxford on the 29th at the community library. So really looking forward to that. It's really great. Yeah, I can't.
No, I'm really looking forward to. I mean, I've seen pictures of the cover that you sort of posted as well. So I'm really excited to sort of get our hands on the book as well. I think it's something that we'll be able to incorporate into our space as well, because it's
that's really cool.
It's so sort of relevant. Like I said, potty training is something that nearly every single parent, when they talk to someone in a nursery, asks about, because it's sometimes as a first-time parent, it's really sort of what is going on.
Yeah, it's quite a big sort of point, isn't it, I guess, in the development,
And people think there's a specific time, they have to do it before this point or that point, but really it's following the child, and reading through stories is a great way to incorporate it into their learning as well.
Yeah, cool.
What sort of things have you realised then when going into the illustrating and authoring things, the impacts that stories and books are having on young children?
Yeah, so early years, one of the reasons I love the early years sort of as a it's not quite a genre, is it? But that sort of type of book, or that age of book, if you like, is because it's that time when the children are getting their characters, and you can start to see, and they're so funny at that age, and they're not inhibited in any way. They'll speak their minds.
Oh yeah,
I think Reese was saying in one of your wasn't she, like that? So I love that, and it's just as they're starting to then go into developing relationships as well. So I think books are really important, because up to that point they might only have that sort of family viewpoint, and they're just about to start going and being exposed to other other people and friends and relationships and things like that. So actually those stories, I think, are a really good way of giving them loads of different examples and loads of different scenarios that they can then relate to when they go into these other situations that are going to be a little bit weird for them. So it's almost giving them things to fall back on when they go into those sorts of situations.
Definitely. Stories can bring the world they live into life without even realising that they've done it. And it's like you said, it's falling back on those stories that they remember, sort of like the toilet training or something about school, or all those emotions. That's why emotion books at the moment are really key.
Yeah, definitely.
Everybody's talking about emotional intelligence and how can we help children to understand how they feel. Because even as adults, sometimes you know how you feel, but you sometimes struggle to even communicate it.
Definitely.
And then we expect 3 and 4 year olds to tell us, no, why have you done that? And it's quite overwhelming. So having stories that help them to process all these things is really, really important.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, and I think those are the really clever ones. The books that are really cleverly written and illustrated, I think, are the ones that completely blend that in. So you don't necessarily realise that you're learning something. And I totally agree. I think it must be so difficult being a young person right now. And if you can start some of that learning at that age, then that sort of puts them in good stead for, when they're young adults, when they're teenagers, when going through the, emotional turmoil, that you go through, and the development that you go through in those years. If you've got something steady to fall back on, then that's great. Yeah, and again, like Ruth was saying, actually, the fact that almost it gets forgotten sometimes in terms of of the range of education that's taught. When actually those formative years are really, really crucial.
Definitely, and we are literally setting, like you said, children up for that future of going into those teenage years where things get even more complicated for them.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
if we can teach them through stories and through storytelling and things like that, and creativity, that actually you can express yourself in different ways, and it's okay to do so, then, and I guess it's with your like illustrating, you found the love for that at school.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's where it originated. Yeah, definitely.
And in early years, it's something that we it's such a big part of, is being creative, and it's not just about drawing; it's about being creative with Play-Doh and clay, and being creative when it comes to small worlds and telling stories through figures. And sometimes when you've read a book with the children that they love and they really resonate with, you can tell because the characters become part of the play as well.
So you can see it being replicated in what they're doing. That's really interesting.
And when the story's really powerful, it becomes part of the play and part of the narrative that they do. And like you said, the words that are on the paper are really impactful because the children remember and stick with it. And so it's definitely such an important part of early years and the development of children.
Yeah, that makes total sense. And you can think back to when you were young, can't you? And the stuff that you played was what you saw in films or what you read in books, and the stories that were being told. So that makes perfect sense.
So what do you think the future is for you? Where do you see yourself going with this sort of career that you've decided to jump into?
Yeah, so hopefully the books do well, or at least I learn enough from the first sort of, even if they don't get published, from creating those books, if I learn enough from the community, because the illustrating and writing community for that age of book is really, really good, really supportive. So even if I can just put a few of them out there and get some decent feedback, so I can then create something that is really good quality, really useful, but really lovely to read, and then that's where I want to be. I also want to go back into schools and things like that, because I did one project, it's just off my own back, a few years ago with one of my friends, Class R in Crowmarsh Primary School. And I went in with kind of a couple of questions for the kids, just to sort of develop some ideas. And then I said I would draw them, write the ideas, draw it into a little book, and give it to them specifically. And it was hilarious. Like, some of the things they came out with, the imagination was incredible.
Yeah, I imagine.
And I thought, this could go one of two ways. Either they're going to be totally on board with it, or someone's going to say poo, and that's it. It's going to descend into absolute chaos.
Yes. There's normally one that does.
Yeah, and there was, but they were able to bring themselves back into the room. So that was actually good. So, but that sort of thing, I'd love to do that again. It was one of the most hilarious and like.
So you just went into the classroom, into the reception class, and sort of said to them, "Let's make a story." Yeah.
So I said, to each of them, I sort of said to the teacher, like, going away for a bit, I want to do this in the future. So I'm doing this as a sort of a starter project to see how it goes. And all I want to do is ask each of the kids, if you had a magic hat, what would it look like and what would it do? And some of the stuff that came out of it was just incredible.
Was it good?
There was one upside down floating unicorn with a rainbow mane, hat. I'm like, who wouldn't want that hat?
Yes.
And it was just brilliant. It was just brilliant. And they were so clever with some of their answers as well. I think there was a dragon that was spitting chocolate because he loves chocolate.
Of course.
So that was, and it was just, it was really rewarding. And then you write it and you take it back to them, and they can see themselves in the book, in the story. Yeah. It's just great. So I'd love to do.
So did you sort of illustrate that and create a story from everything they'd said?
Yeah. So as they were replying, I'd just do a quick, right, they've got blue eyes, brown hair with a ponytail or whatever it happened to be, so that at least they would recognize themselves because they were very I drew them in a sort of quite a childish style, as if they'd drawn them themselves.
Nice.
So that they could recognize who they were. And then took the ideas, wrote it, and then came back when it was sort of half written to show them some of the pages. And it was.
That's such a fun project. Yeah, I can imagine that is something that doing again. And like you said, it will probably spark a lot of ideas as well, because the children will be able to pull their imagination incredible. So it will help you to think, actually, that's really good. Like a chocolate dragon sounds like a great idea.
Great way to generate ideas, if I'm struggling.
Just
they can help me
back
out.
to that book. Upside down unicorns.
Yeah, that's right,
No, it sounds amazing.
Yeah.
That's a really fun project, actually, that you could, get in touch, and you could work with people to build more of the sort of confidence, I guess, with writing as well.
And you get an idea of the sort of things they enjoy, and
the best
crazy
about
world.
What they enjoy is the children themselves.
Exactly.
It's kind of it's quite difficult to get, like I say, when you're trying to test your books, it's finding the right age children and what do they really think, because like you said, they'll be honest.
Yeah,
they'll
exactly.
be totally honest. If it's boring, they'll tell you.
Yeah, exactly,
Have you found that, was it different than what you thought it would be writing for children?
It's more fun than I thought it would be.
Amazing.
Because like I said, so I was a little bit nervous that it'd be like, I think I've got a great idea, but actually children don't enjoy the idea. Or, you're writing something that maybe would appeal to an adult, but actually is very boring for a child, or they're just not interested, or it doesn't engage them, or whatever it happens to be. But the interesting thing was it helped me. So with the ideas generation, it helped me tap back into what made me interested in stories, and, made me think of, okay, well, there are a few events during my childhood that actually are just memories for me, but actually would spark a good idea for a book. And then you just write a small idea down and then come back to it later, and you might think of another idea that then builds on that one, and, that sort of stuff. So a lot more fun than I thought it was going to be. I'll sit down and I'll draw. Sometimes it'll work, sometimes it won't.
Yeah.
But when you actually start to set time aside for doing it properly, it can be, it's really good fun.
Yeah.
You know, and you start to see a little bit more of what you are capable of when you give yourself the time to do it. So
Definitely.
yeah, it's been really good fun.
When you've been sort of thinking of your ideas and creating sort of characters, what kind of characters do you lean towards? Do you have animals or humans?
Bit of everything. I think my instinct, because it's coming from my sort of my nostalgia, it was defaulting to little boy seeing or doing.
Right.
And then the more I allowed myself just to start to open my mind to more ideas. And when I was doing the various online courses and going and speaking to people, you start to realize, and that might be why it was so much more sort of enjoyable, maybe, because you start to realize the opportunities that are there by not doing that. So I've got ideas that I came up with ages ago, which are based around effectively me as a little boy, that have evolved into either animal characters or, any other sort of type of character, and actually you realize that, yes, it's probably my experience or it's born in my idea or my experience, but actually it applies to so many other situations and people. And then you can almost take the character out, think about the story, and then put any character back in again and check and see if it works. Yeah.
Doesn't always have to be a person, does it?
Exactly.
Children will see a baby as like a baby tiger.
Yeah.
As the character, like they will relate to it because it's a young and they've got a mum or dad or whatever the situation
Yeah, exactly.
is. They'll relate back to it. So
yeah, that's absolutely right. And this is what, when I've been going through the course, they say, try and think around animal characters, because you can play with the character because you'll have an idea of what a particular character is like, and then you can decide whether you're going to go with that stereotype or actually change it subtly to make it maybe a little bit more funny or interesting. But also, any child reading that isn't alienated by it being a child character that is not like them.
No.
They can actually jump into the character of the animal. Yeah, so you're exactly right, yeah.
I think we probably don't give them enough credit, the children listening to these stories, because they really do absorb everything. I mean, I was reading a story this morning. It was one of the Colour Monster books.
Yeah.
Going to school. We're at that point where the preschools they're getting ready for school, and we read Colour Monster Goes to School, and even the children who weren't directly sat with me across the room, they were all, you could see that they were listening, and then would have conversations about school, because it's just something that they and they all can relate to the Colour Monster in different ways in the books that they've done. So it's definitely something that I don't think we give children credit for, because they really can absorb into stories.
Yeah, they really do. And
you realise.
Absolutely, I totally agree. And when I did that one with the class R, if I made any small changes between visits, they would pick up on it.
Yeah.
So I can't remember. There was one, I think, where I had to change there was a subtle difference between the hat. I think one of them spat out butterflies or something, and I think they'd said a particular colour of butterfly, and I changed it for the whatever the colour palette was on the page.
Dear.
Never going to do that again. But yeah, they recognised it, and they pulled me up, and I was like, "You're absolutely right. Yep, sorry about that. I'll make the change." Yeah. So
they remember everything.
They do. Yeah, they do remember everything. Yeah.
So it sounds amazing, and I'm really excited to see where your sort of illustrating author journey takes you. I'm really excited for the book that you've started or done already, and any future projects. Definitely let us know, and you can come back and talk about
thanks very much.
Everything that you're doing. So just remind everybody, Amazing Albert the Hero is out on the 28th?
28th of August, 28th of August. And then we've got the release sort of party, if you like, in Oxford.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And available now to pre-order?
Yes. Yeah, either on the Troubadour website or on Amazon as well. Yeah.
Perfect. And so my final question that I ask everybody, we talk early years and you kind of dipped into it a little bit. What is your favourite childhood memory?
So I've listened to a few of your podcasts now, and I've been worried about this question.
It's no pressure. You said it don't have to be true, because I wouldn't know.
Yeah, that's just fair. Yeah. I don't think I've got one particular one.
That's fine.
But so when I was 3, we moved to Sweden, and I was there for about 4 years. So through the majority of that sort of my initial, my early years memories, and all of that period, there are so many individual examples of, magical things happening. So Sweden is so set up for the winter. So as soon as winter starts and snow falls, there's lights everywhere, and it's all really magical. And as kids, you're then taken into the woods and you're taught about, the forests. My brother reminded me today about toadstools. You always see a toadstool in a picture, and actually they were there in the woods in Sweden, so you could see them and relate to. So I think that whole experience, I was there with, I've got 3 other brothers, but at the time with 2 brothers, and it made us grow closer. I think you can tell all of us have, feel that sort of the magical element that was there. So I think the whole of that experience was so incredible. Like changing seasons, things that so many different, like skiing and spending a lot of time outside. So I think all of that has definitely had an impact on. Do
you like being outdoorsy now?
Do love being outdoors, yeah.
So it's stuck.
Yeah, it has, yeah, exactly.
Definitely stuck through.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining me. I really, really appreciate it.
It's been an absolute pleasure. Yeah.
And I'm, like I say, so excited for everyone to get their hands on Amazing Albert the Hero. And we'll pop some links below so that everyone can sort of get in touch, and we can promote you as well, because I think that what you're doing is fantastic, and the more exciting and interesting stories that we can bring into our early years industry, the better, because like we've said, they make such an impact. So
brilliant. No, that's very kind. Thanks very much. And all the best with the project and stuff. It looks like it's brilliant.
Thank you so much. So thank you everyone for listening. Be sure to check out all of Paul's work, and hopefully we'll have him back when he's ready to share his first book with us. Thank you so much.
Thanks very much.
I'll see you in the next one. Bye.